Yes, hello and welcome. Actually, no, it was our lovable cat Grinch, Frello. Tarek was perfectly on time. Anyway, allow me to bring in the guests, starting with the aforementioned bard.
Here's to the bard and a calling me plum. Here's to the beast and the rest of you scum. The cage is locked in and the town is aflame, and it's ours for the taking, though you get the fame.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
And of course, your lady.
Yes, my lady.
I love how
Hey,
she
sweetheart.
I love how she says she feels in her toesies. Is that what you do?
God.
Do you do like? Does she do like what Mr. Quentin Tarantino had Selma Hayek do to?
Oh, you fuck. You fuck. Bring on the other assholes. Come on.
I have to do that.
Ah! Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Oh, you fuck.
Alrighty, let's bring on Johan.
Is everything ready? Do it.
Thousands of souls extinguished by the push of a button.
This time, Yuri. This is only the beginning.
That's from Modern Warfare 3, right?
Maybe.
What was that from?
It was from Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3,
That's what I said, yeah.
Ending. One of the endings.
Okay, I thought so. I thought that was Modern Warfare 3. Okay.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Well, at least we know in the lore that that Tarek is like Quentin Tarantino.
Well,
I'm actually not sorry.
You think you're so fucking funny.
ho. Merry Christmas, everybody.
No, I don't think I'm funny. Your reaction to my comment is the funny part.
But done. Think about this. It is really funny, though.
Thank you.
Especially when we have Balerion in the back, kill him. Heck, yelling, die, Bright Lord, die, kill him dead, burn him, die already. Okay, well, in that case, let me... Alrighty, let's, okay, we got something here. Welcome.
Hello,
Just
everybody.
got wrecked.
Your lady is calling for her bard in shining cloth.
Jesus.
She wants to. She wants her toesies.
You stop right there.
Watch your tongue, you little buddy.
I can't.
And this is people. This is how we break down. Just a simple step by step example.
Shining cloth is the least bad thing I could say. He's not wrong. Alrighty. Well, let's bring on our resident curmudgeon.
That chair you, Bright Lord. Die! Die! Oops, I just killed my throat.
There goes the throat.
Yeah,
No
sorry,
comment.
that's all.
Tell me. Do you bleed? You will.
Oh, yeah.
That's unfortunate. Hi, Zader. How's it going? Good to see you, Hypatia. Sup, Becca? I've already said hi.
Can you even have moderators if you're not monetized?
No, I can have my moderators. It no matter how many subs I have. I just need to. Well, actually, not. I think that like I can like give them a wrench on YouTube. Maybe I'll just make. Oh, Tyler Preston is there. Maybe I'll just make him and Becca mods.
Who mods?
Becca will have all the power. Yes! Derek smells in his eyes. Finally!
I want to abuse my power.
Unlimited.
Unlimited.
I
All
want
right.
to tyrannize people.
Join the dark side, Becca.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Darth Becca?
Knew the true power of dark side force.
Hey,
Darth Becca.
No,
Darth
Becca
Brightness.
oh, no, it's maybe I'll just make you guys. We don't really need monitors. We don't really need monitors that much. We're a pretty chill community here. We don't get troll bots.
Not
Well,
very
it
much.
didn't.
Not very much. Sometimes people get a little bit political.
Yeah.
Mods are using
Yeah,
solo
sometimes.
gifts.
Oh wow. Okay, this is funny. OMFG, I'm actually going to commit a murder in a minute.
Oh,
Who
If
is?
Becca said that. But for some reason YouTube is unfunny, so they don't allow them anything.
No, of course you
As
don't.
any funny thing. Alrighty, Becca, I have now officially made the choice. You are a moderator. Come
Uh-oh.
here every day.
Congratulations! Well done, my dear. Now you can finally
Jolly good
take over the
show.
world.
Jolly good show, old
And-
chap.
And Tyler Preston, since you're a smut boy ambassador, I'll just make you a mod too. Ew.
Hypatia was asking. We can make her a moderator, I guess.
Yeah, I'll make her a mod too. She's very consistent coming here. Yeah.
Give the Britishers the power, she says.
Yep. Alrighty. Eddie. I am joking.
No, you're serious.
Are you super serious, you guys? Mamba Pig exists.
Plot is going as we planned. Long live the queen. Alrighty. Well, alright, enough joking around. So, any time constraints on anybody that make it so that we need to they need to go first or anything.
Well, I'm going AFK-ish around in about 45 minutes.
Okay, you go first.
Oops. Yikes. Half a second.
Got the floor.
Oh no, you can cuss if you're a mod. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me.
You only have to set an example.
An example, like Lemau, get wrecked, and in your face, burn. You know that kind of stuff you can always say.
Okay, unfortunately, this is for my serious novel. Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. If you don't want to be a moderator, Hypatia, I can remove you. Just let me know.
I don't see any wrenches in the chat, though.
It's only on YouTube.
Oh, okay. No wonder. Okay.
It's only blue.
Whenever you're ready.
She's actually like the funny thing is now that she's a mod, she's allowed to.
Ha 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 ha! Get
Doesn't
wrecked!
YouTube sometimes take away cuss words if you
Yeah, I think it does.
doesn't
I
it
know,
like inconsistently though?
yeah, they also say I think I think if they say I think like if they I think like if like they have like words like murder or something like that at since like Becca said I'm actually going to commit murder in a minute in the chat, but it didn't show up.
Yeah, I did this whole post to comment
Yeah,
on YouTube once about die horribly, die, and YouTube didn't like that. They didn't. They weren't amused.
Well, it's YouTube. What do you expect?
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, I'll try to fix that in the comments. Since I'll just try. I'll figure out a way to stop that in the comments because that's annoying and like I don't like censorship either. Like,
well, within reason, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Technically, you could technically put how do you say, some words that cannot be spoken out. You can type them into the settings, and then they cannot be spoken out. Done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay.
Like if you would put 3 into the curse words, then nobody can say 3 anymore.
That'd be hilarious.
Oh
no. Okay. So, if we're ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yep.
Do it.
Urunu, for his part, was only too willing to comply with. Okay, everyone remembers this. This is right. Lady Margaret, Emperor was a creep. All that stuff. Politics, made-up countries, monkeys. Okay. Urunu, for his part, was only too willing to comply with imperial desire. That should probably be exalted desire, but okay, never mind. And had put any objection to Margaret entering the Barusa aside, at least for the time being. Exalted will grant me all Pylamar's lands, wealth, and castle? He asked eagerly at a meeting with the Emperor, Prince Mpu'u, and the priest Malalaama in the vestibule to the imperial bedchamber. A little too eagerly. It was considered good form to maintain at least the pretense that one is carrying out Exalted's commands with no thought of reward. He and O'Ea had responded to the imperial summons with all due dispatch and were awaiting their orders in the vestibule. Yes, Exalted, I told you that already. Get me the count, said Ekwekwe. I want him dead, and I want Saranjes. And the marriage with Margaret, said Urunu. Exalted will grant this vile slave my longing? He began to twitch nervously, which is highly uncomfortable if you were sprawling on the floor. That's Blessed's job, said Mpu'u, taking a sip of beach wine. It is desirable to investigate any possible irregularities in her marriage to Edrion of Darzaz, began Malalaama, although he couldn't say Edrion or Darzaz, so said Edion and Dazaza instead. Yes, I'm sure Blessed will be highly scrupulous in finding what we want him to find, said Mpu'u. Now, Duke O'Ea, you understand your orders? Yes, Glorious, gulped the governor of Peje, looking not unlike a rat in a trap. Ever since receiving his orders, he had begun to feel queasy. He was loyal, yes, but if Exalted could send someone else, he began. There is no honor in this, he thought. My ties with Great One Count Garawada, to betray them, he raised himself up nervously. nervously removed his gubernatorial ring and began flipping it. "Stop that!" said Ikwekwe, foaming a little. O'Ea trembled, put the ring back on, and threw himself onto the floor, still shaking. "If Exalted could find something more..." He stopped and began shaking again. "You sound like a squealing funuru," said Mpu'u. "Would you rather incur Exalted displeasure?" Yaji Malala looked uncomfortable and fiddled nervously with the 9-fold star on his necklace. "Would it not be enough to imprison or banish him?" "No, you cringing, sniveling priestling," said Ikwekwe. "I want him dead." "Blessed may be a bit of a bore," put in Mpu'u between sips of wine, "but he does have a point. Killing nobles is best avoided where possible. It's messy." "No," said the emperor. "I said I want him dead. Exalted I, by imperial command." He glowered, or gave it his best rather languid shot, at O'Ea. "You will bring him here to be executed or die yourself. Use some pretext if it helps your conscience, I don't care. Exalted I want to watch him die." This was unusually coherent for Exalted. "Exalted, may I go?" gasped O'Ea, barely lifting his head. "If you want to live, you better get out now!" screamed the emperor, or rather squealed, but it's the thought that counts. O'Ea took the hint and left the room as quickly as he could while crawling backwards in accordance with court etiquette. "We are very displeased," said Ikwekwe. "O'Ea is a traitor too. He should die." "We can't kill the entire court, Exalted Father," said Mpu'u with a sigh. Exalted Father might consider paying some attention to politics. "My exalted will is politics," said the emperor. "Dismissed. I want Saranjis and Waka'a," which is a drug. Burunu and Malala crawled out almost as hastily as O'Ea had. Mpu'u exited a little more slowly, trying to keep from rolling his eyes. Okay, next section. One morning, a month or so later, Pilamar was looking over the list of provisions. Or at least his eyes were scanning it, but as usual these days he was distracted. When he awoke with a start at the beating of the water drum outside the study, and immediately resumed his public persona. "Enter," he said, and a courier entered the study. "The Governor Bruno is on his way here with an armed band," said the courier. "He says he's coming to bring you to justice for what he calls your high crimes against Exalted Box." "How far away is he?" asked Pilamar. "About 2 weeks' journey away," said the courier. "Pardon me?" Oh, bit of echo or something. Anyway, "I knew something like this would happen sooner or later," said the Count. "I have made too many enemies, and those too highly placed. This doesn't give me much time, but I'm not wholly unprepared. Summon the Assistant Master of Arms, Azargan. We must look to our defenses. Luckily, the castle is strong." Pardon me a second. The next few days were busy, ordering the vassals and warriors to prepare for a possible attack, summoning the peasants and slaves and other dependents, including the Yaji and Yajani, the priest and priestess, although this was framed as an invitation rather than a summons, to seek shelter, supplying the fortresses with sufficient weapons, but leaving enough also for the castle. Storing food. Fortunately, a decent supply of food had already been stored, but they might need every grain of it, and more. Weapons had to be taken out of the storage in the towers, and as many dependents as possible had to be brought up there, some from a good distance away. Pots of water had to be brought up to the roof, along with fuel, so that the water could be boiled and poured down on the assailants' heads if necessary. Although the Count hoped to avoid an all-out battle, or indeed any battle at all. The encircling towers, manned by the Count's retinue, were also prepared for battle, and such of the peasantry as could fit in the castle were lodged there. Women and children were possible housed in the castle. There was not time to give shelter to more than a tithe of those who needed it, and some had to hole up in the stables, which was just as comfortable as it sounds. Others simply had to stand their ground and hope for the best. The castle was barely ready when Bruno arrived at the southern gate with a large posse in tow, all armed. "Halt," said the captain of the guard, unsheathing his sword. "Why do you bring an armed band to our gates in peacetime?" "We are come to serve Count Marojobo, that is Pilamar, a summons to appear before the Emperor," said Bruno. "This armed band, as you call it, comes in exalted name and is empowered to enforce exalted will." He handed the guard a scroll, folded like an accordion, as was customary, written in red ink and sealed with exalted seal at both the head and the foot of the document. "I will show this to Great One, the Count," said the guard. "You will stay here until my return, under the eyes of my second in command. Any hostile act will be met in kind." The remaining guards also unsheathed their swords and stood ready in case of attack. "Remember," said Bruno, "any resistance to exalted will shall be condignly punished." He banged his staff of office, silver and topped with palm leaves and a goat's head of gold, on the ground 3 times. The guard said nothing. An hour and a half later, which is almost an hour in our time, the captain returned with Pilamar, the latter wearing a green cape and a coronet in the shape of a saber-toothed tiger's head. While holding his own staff of office. A silver rod with the head of a saber-toothed tiger surmounted by the petals of the peace flower. "I have read the decree," he said, "but I'm a little vague on the Count, that is. But I'm a little vague on the details, on precisely what grounds I might be arrested. For an arrest, this is, surely, an invitation would hardly have required a force of this size to deliver." "Doubtless Exalted will reveal that at Exalted's good pleasure," said Bruno. He banged his staff again. Behind his back, some of his soldiers mimicked him and tried to keep from snickering. It was owing to this mannerism that later Kalaman historians would call him, oh God, I can't even read my own language here, Sunga Banganhra, the staff banger. His soldiers had cruder names. Parody. "Is it lawful," said Pilamar, "to take me unawares with this arrest, with no warning sent, and no charges brought?" "Exalted will is law. Surely the law comes from God through the decrees of Ikri. You may pose these questions at the trial, but unless you come, you and yours shall be destroyed. For the sake of my people, I shall come. But you must take this force with us. This castle is fully prepared for any assault." This last statement was only half true, but he hoped it would serve to prevent an attack, at least for now. That Bruno hoped to obtain the castle and the lands was evident, but for that very reason it was in his interests to avoid destroying them. Let me see how much long this goes for. Oh, almost done. Okay, good. Just to avoid destroying them. "Exalted is merciful," said Bruno. "If Great One comes with us without resisting, we will even allow you a horse. You must, of course, remove your coronet and wear the hat of obloquy." The hat of obloquy was a square black hat worn by those accused of grave crimes. A head covering of some sort or other was de rigueur among respectable males and many females, so that even criminals have one of their own. I like the color black, said the Count as he obeyed. Some of Bruno's men, to the governor's annoyance, found this amusing. This is not a game, said Bruno. We are not in the nursery. This is a highly serious matter touching upon the dignity of Exalted Box. He banged his staff again, which amused his soldiers all the more, although they tried to hide it. We are not in the nursery, agreed Pylamar. Having invested Pylamar with the hat of obloquy, Bruno was eager to be off. He had no desire to linger in this place where Pylamar's armed forces were massed and in no very friendly mood. If he could have, he would have avoided the town of Anathos as well. The Comital family were popular there, at least among the commons. And while the magnates and upper burgesses may not have loved Pylamar, they loved Exalted Box even less. Traveling through this hostile country was dangerous, and Bruno could not wait to be more or less safe in the city of Tharmalon. Not that he was popular there either, but at least the town was well garrisoned with a sizable Sandoranian force. There would be... I'm sorry, half a second, I need to get my place. There would be... Sorry. There would be need of such a force in Serthaton when he obtained possession, as he did not doubt that he would. As promised, he allowed Pylamar a horse, although he insisted on tying him to it, ostensibly in case he resisted arrest, but in truth doubtless primarily in order to humiliate him. The Count, however, still had a more dignified air than Bruno, so the gambit rather backfired. The scenery is lovely around here, remarked Pylamar. I dare say you will find it even lovelier when you move in here. Silence, said Bruno, annoyed. And that is that.
All right. Nice.
All right.
I do like how the tension is now ramping up. I'm interested to see what happens to Pylamar when he's brought to our Joffrey / Aegon the Third type, Aegon the Fourth type.
Yeah, things do happen in this chapter.
But
Tension.
Yeah.
Was it clear what's happening? What's going on?
Yeah. Basically, he wants Margaret to marry him, and he is sending Bruno, I believe. Bruno. Okay, sorry, I have Narnia on my brain. So.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and so they've got him, and he's wearing the cone of shame in this culture.
Yeah, they got him. Bruno wants to marry Margaret, and the Emperor mainly wants her in his Berusa, which is basically the harem.
Mm-hmm.
So the Emperor doesn't care if he marries her or not. He just wants to,
He just wants to do play horizontal hokey pokey.
Well, not even necessarily horizontal, but we're not even going to go there. No comment. This chapter is like this chapter's too gross even for you, Bright Lord. Yep. Just trust me on that one.
Challenge accepted, actually.
Oh no!
Oh, you're gonna read that part of the book. Ah, lovely.
No.
PG-420. Let's go.
I could read something terrible. I don't think that anybody would like it, though.
Yeah, probably best not. I mean, it might be too gross. You might be too gross even for you.
I know I have one lady who's really sadistic, She's kind of like a female Christian Grey. In some ways, only she's actually terrible. As opposed to being a something of an aspirational figure, which is kind of terrifying. But yeah, that's what I got. Any other feedback or thoughts?
No, actually, I really liked it. It
Yeah,
was
I did
good
too.
followable. It was good and followable.
So nothing dragged or anything. That's good.
No.
No, nothing out of
Good.
the ordinary. No pacing that was out of the ordinary. So
I think that like something that I would like to kind of like understand is kind of like what I kind of don't necessarily have a picture of what like the castle looks like.
Oh yeah. There's actually a description of the castle in the first chapter, but it's been a while since I read that. I'm not even sure if I read that part of the chapter 1 or not. There is a description of it there. Occasionally, rooms are described here or there, but in this chapter, we're just assuming. In this scene, we're just assuming all that.
Oh, no worries. It's probably just pacing is probably like insanely draggy, since we have since like there's multiple weeks in between stuff. It's kind of the same thing with a writer's group. So
Yeah.
and like little descriptors here and there of like placing his hands on the blacks, the whatever color stone it is, or ruffian or whatever, that sort of thing. Well, like bits and pieces. It doesn't have to be too big, and you don't have to do it. This is just my opinion.
Yeah, the castle. It's a round castle, and it's got kind of triangular, pyramid-shaped towers on top of it. And I think it's blue. And there's like I think there's some kind of wind vane that's shaped like a saber-toothed tiger head on top. The Pylomar means saber-toothed tiger.
That, yeah. I remember.
Oh, you remember that? Good.
Yeah, because you brought it up in this chapter.
Yeah, it's like their not sigil, but it's their symbol.
Nice. I like that. On hamburgers, it's pretty good, but only so long as it's saturated with grease.
Ugh! That sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
So everyone got an appetite when I read my chapter.
beans are good. Beans are always great.
All right.
Combine that with bratwurst.
Flame war over cheese in the chat.
Let's see. Yep, that seems to be what people in the chat got away from this is that they're getting an appetite.
But melted cheese is so good. It is so
Alright.
tasty on your tongue.
All right.
Weird, I barely even mentioned the food in this
Alrighty.
chapter.
Alrighty. Anybody else have need to head out in however long they have?
Nah.
Okay.
I can stay.
Okay, good. How about Codex? You're the new guy. How about you introduce yourself to the chat since this is your first time here. Please tell us about yourself.
There's much to say, to be fair, really. I've just started writing my own stuff, really, because I got really bored with this whole lockdown situation here. I think everyone can sympathize with that, really.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah. And I just felt like might pass the time, make some stories half the time.
What sort of stories? Oh, thank you.
Sort of my own stuff, to be fair. Just out of my own spin to mundane things, really.
Fair enough.
For example, the story is actually from my... You won't believe where this idea from the story came from. It actually came from medical pills, actually.
Huh.
In what way exactly? I've read a little bit of it. It didn't seem like too much of a drug trip.
Well, not like a drug trip, but more like the idea, like what if like every single tiny capsule had like a tiny soldier inside of it or something like that.
Oh,
Like
so
Like the
now
ad,
Cosmos
like
is
the
done.
ad. Oh, yeah. Like the ad of the
Yeah, like
stomach.
yeah,
I
like that. Yeah,
Osmosis
some
Jones.
firemen
Has
and like.
anybody here read that or seen that movie? What?
Which
Sorry?
movie?
The Osmosis Jones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Osmosis
Wasn't there a
Jones.
television series as well about that? If memory serves.
Ozzy and Drix, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I quite like that movie, especially Lawrence Fishburne being gangster for the only time in his career.
Mm.
Does John Wick count technically? I don't know.
Well, he's not like doing an actual like medical books are written about losers
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Losers.
or let's turn up the heat in here.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's just like just total stupid gangster. And it's kind of
Horrifying, actually, the character.
yeah. His like he's playing basically the red virus, and his goal is to kill
Bill Murray.
Oh yeah,
kill
Bill Murray. Yeah.
in under 38. I think it's 48 hours, and get his own chapter in the medical books.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah,
So he wants to be COVID, essentially.
pretty much. Yeah.
Uh,
And unlike most villains and things, he actually has a fairly high body count, including a child.
Oh,
oh.
yeah.
6
Yeah.
days. The little girl down in Detroit, Motown. 6
That
days
must be a
flat.
riot.
6 days flat. Yeah. Alrighty.
Oh, I hate eggs too. Sorry.
Mhm. Alrighty. Codex, I believe it is your turn. Give us some setup for how you came up with this story. Like what? So it was it was pills and stuff. What else?
Well, it's
helped you to come up
something
with?
else as well. Like my idea was because I when I was younger and currently now actually I do tend to travel from abroad sometimes. When I was very young exactly, because when I was very young, I actually traveled from Germany, which I was born in, then to Cyprus, then I think back to Germany again for about a couple of years or so, then currently now living in England, to be fair.
Oh,
So I traveled a bunch of the world, really, to be fair.
nice.
And
Cool.
sorry,
I said cool.
yeah, thank you. And seeing all these different kinds of cultures and ways of life, exactly from being a bit of a history buff myself, exactly. I like to come up with the ideas exactly in my head. So yeah, just kind of rambling at this point, really.
No worries.
Yeah. And so the basis of the people for these beings are tribesmen. Now, the idea is basically they're biomechanical machines, but you would think they're from like Cybertron, for example, like they're from that place. But no, they're like tribal-like. They have like rundown technology, and they refine technology that they're able to salvage and make do exactly to convert them into different things. So like one thing is like an air pump, others like elevators and the like, or lifts, how we say it here, of course. And yeah, something like that, really.
All right, so it sounds kind of like Nier Automata in a way, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so something like that. Shall I begin then, or do you want me to continue on a bit more?
No, go for it.
Carry on.
Okay,
Just
I'll
do
begin.
it.
Gathered friend, listen to our tale of a great spirit. At the dawn of time, the great spirit descended upon paradise and created life. He made the Turunga, bringing joy and light to all. The outsiders named the island Modara in his honor. His spirit brother killed Jaden, envious of his brother's goodness. After a great battle, he cast a dark spell, putting Modara into an endless sleep. While Modara slept, the Tuhunga's powers were weakened by Kil'jaeden's power. However, still the faith never dimmed, nor whatever. Sorry, and would never serve him. So he corrupted the land with dark and wicked beasts created valleys of sorry. Sorry, let me say that again. And created valleys of shadow. For all shadows served him. Still, the islanders kept faith and believing that one day 6 warriors of light, with 6 great masks of power, would defeat Kil'jaeden and banish the great shadows from the land. Kil'jaeden, in range of this defiance, summoned beings of great power, scattering them across the island and infecting many creatures, changing them, molded them into wicked beasts with one goal in their mind: destruction. And he perished at the onslaught of the Majin. The Tuhunga fought back and managed to hold them at bay, but only just enough to lick their wounds and salvage what they could save. But after all the death and the dying, their faith didn't die, and the wise elders, 6 for each village, told them that the Great Spirit will deliver them. Days turned to months turned to years. I meant to say years, sorry. Still, no warriors came, nor ever would, until now. The morning sun began to rise into the sky, way high upon the stone pillars. A fiery pit crackled its last embers. The village elder gazed upon the sky. A beautiful sight in the darkest of days, he said. The night sky began to fade, and the stars faded away, one by one. But something caught his eye. Caught the elder's eye. One star remained, a single star, in the morning sun, then split apart into 5 more. It moved out into the ends of the island on violet trails behind them, like a water droplet off of a leaf. "'Tis time." He making his way onto the beach near his village. Once explained to the village captain that he will be out for a while, he made his way from his molten rock village, passing the ashen tree line, and finally, reached his destination, a golden beach with rippling waves moving backward and back and forward, almost softened into melody with a seagull's cry. Then, resting upon the shoreline was a colossal round cylinder, no more the size of the elder, laying motionless, empty, save for the footprints leading away from the cylinder, following the footprints from the shore. His trail ended when molten rock started to come into sight. He saw it, a shadow of a man, but not quite like a man. The elder could not make out the man clearly due to the shadows clinging to him like a shroud of hot steam, and a hint of dark red filled the outline of the mechanical man. One hand of a sword shaped into a living flame. The mechanical man turned his head, and his eyes glowed blood red behind his mask. He then turned, continuing on his rocky ascent towards the molten village. The captain with the guard stand over a map of the island's borders, on a round stone table, discussing with 3 other members of the village defenses and other plans for the future. "We could place more traps along the side of the ridgeline to the east. There are more sightings of the Majin. They've become more aggressive than usual," one of them said. But if we do that, then we run the risk of losing not Sorry, let me finish that again. But if we do that, then we run the risk of losing not only losing men, but waning our resources. Or we already have more than enough at the front gate. The captain listened with his eyes closed. Sorry, I'm just. Oh boy. Okay. Each one back and forward, weighing both the captain's arguments, until a third interjected with his plan of action. We could ask the other tribes for assistance and more supplies. Then the captain interjected, placing his hand on the table. The other tribes are in the same position as we are, draining resources, tax on all sides, and few men to handle even the simplest of tasks in the village. We lost communication with them some time ago. Sorry, let me phrase that. Some of them we have lost communication with them some time now. However, I agree with Paku. We have enough traps already. We need to focus on ourselves for the moment. Once we steady ourselves, we can then. Once we steady ourselves, we can. Sorry, I meant to. Oh boy, I need to sort that out. A horn blew with a mighty cry, which roared like thunder, cutting whatever the captain was going to say. That's the front entrance, Paku interjected. Impossible. The other sentries would have spotted the machine coming from the other junctions. From the other junction. It must have found a way from the beach. Captain's eyes widened at Paku's words. The elder Vakama, was heading that way. Gather our forces and rally to the edge of the Ashen Forest. We're coming off from there. Go. Taking cover behind a blackened toppled tree. The captain looked over his 4 men. The two other captains took 3 other warriors on each of the flanks of the forest, armed with spears, shields, and bows, gazing at the blackened clearing, willing whatever creature to show itself. Whoosh! He turned sharply with the explosion. Still, after all it was one of the men, Jimin. Yes, the village filled to some. One of his arrows had burst into flames, destroying his equipment. And the captain and the Greek looked at him with a thunderous gaze. Look at the shaft, he said, picking up another spear. Turning his watch to the clearing, he saw the creature, a shadow of a man, stalking towards them, not knowing they were there. Now, the captain commanded. Both the flanks pulled the trigger to set off the traps. Jagged sticks jetted out of the ground, surrounding the man in the wooden cage, rejoicing at their capture. Still, the captain's sword hand erupted into flame, slicing the shell with one swipe. Stunned, the warriors looked at the captain, who began to stomp his feet and shouted a war cry, "For Mordora and the Great Spirit!" Emboldened, the 10 warriors charged into battle, spears in their hands, with Jimin following behind, slowly. He once heard that the elder told him once, someone who acts slow thinks the fastest. Acting slowest will think the fastest. Someone who moves slow moves the fastest. They were children, brave children, he admitted that. Raising his sword to strike, to cut them all down, just a few meters before the 14 Tohunga reaching him. Cease! Bellowed Vakama, holding high his staff in the air. The mechanical man, the captain, and his warriors stopped only a few feet in front of one of each other. Then Valorn. Sorry. Then Vakama walked towards the mechanical man, meeting his unbridled gaze. Vakama, what are you doing? Pleading for him to stay away, but ignored his plea, and both, to their surprise, he bowed at the mechanical man. both forces confused at this action. Young ones, our great struggle is approaching its end, for destiny has come to pass. Realizing what the elder spoke, the hunger rejoiced. The struggle was close to an end. The savior, to the mechanical man, his destiny had just begun.
Nice.
That's better, yeah.
That was lovely.
I have a
That
feeling
was
you
lovely.
and Carl would get along pretty well, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Even with the struggle of the words you had, it was still very good followable. It was very followable because the flow of the story was really in such a tempo that it was actually really
It had a rhythm.
Yeah.
yeah, it has a good rhythm, and also the descriptions you gave, they were really nice to hear, and they gave the atmosphere for the story itself. So it was a good story to begin with.
I
Keep it up.
I like the mythical style, especially at the beginning. Legendary mythical style, and you have a good voice too. So,
Oh, thank you.
don't mention it.
You also, presentation wise, I have to admit, you did have quite a presence in terms of actually reading it. So well done there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My first time, I practiced a week ahead of time, which is why, because I knew I was going to be nervous the first time, so I practiced ahead of time. It might help to do that. Not just maybe just the first or second time. I don't do it now, but the first time that's what I did.
A true legend.
Yeah. The only thing that's kind of just like I think like I gave you. I think I gave you my thoughts.
Yeah, you did.
A
Yeah.
while back. Have you did you have a chance to put them in, or this kind of the same? Since I kind of have a little bit of trouble.
It is mostly the same. It's just the added part with Kill Jaden adding being enraged by what the Tahunga were doing exactly, and unleashing much more beast and killing the citizens in the villages. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've given most of my feedback already. Okay.
Yeah.
But not on stream, not on live stream. So.
Yeah.
I was just behind the scenes, really.
Yeah, he actually just found me on Twitter.
Well, because I watched
Twitter?
the Smurfcast, and I watched him on the Smurfcast as well, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that Dunn had Twitter.
Yeah,
I know too. It was shocking.
I have
what?
Twitter. I have Twitter. Yes. I used it for tweeting out screenshots of Fire Can't Kill a Dragon.
I see.
The worst bits, at least. I was just give me a break. Thankfully, now I'm just I've kind of let that go by the wayside, and I'm just gonna be here are all of my here are all of my highlighted bits on Goodreads. Read that, and you'll have everything you possibly want.
Yeah.
About why this book is awful.
I think it's brilliant, that book, actually. It's a brilliant expose.
Okay, it's a brilliant exposure of two idiots, yeah.
Yes.
But I still think the other one is far better, Framing Monsters.
Oh, Framing Monsters. I would rather read. Actually, I would rather read Fire Can't Kill a Dragon than Framing Monsters. Framing Monsters is just an insane man.
But it's a good man. He's very funny, making all these weird connections.
Yeah, like the alien queen is representative of the black welfare mom.
No comment, but Becca is getting flashbacks from Fire Can't Kill a Dragon. Sorry about that.
Alrighty. Oh, well, it is our good friend Johann's turn.
Oh, is it my turn? All right.
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see if I can hold on one sec. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. All right, good. A B V C S. All right. Tip, 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 tip. So what is this about? This is a little short story. So I hope you enjoy it. The finding of the magic brush. This documentation is how the RSI unit found the magic brush. I must say, I'm still kind of surprised when it came home with this relic in hand. It was not the weirdest story I ever came across, but somehow it still this baffles me still. How such terribly designed construct was able to find and use it. It all started when I sent the RSI unit to the nearby village of Maldrek on a mission to scout for information of its surroundings. Normally I would have sent out the CFS unit, but it became defective after getting into trouble with some fishmen and needed repair. When the RSI unit returned to its unit station, I hooked it up to the Delphi 1 information center. It took me only 1 hour to boot up the main crystal car that is located in the back of the RSI unit. I must say, I'm still surprised how this piece of junk is still intact since the RSI unit has not been in repair for a long time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There I came across the conversation with an ordinary old man. The conversation they had was about how to paint. What left an impression on me was when I looked into the information given by the monitor sensors. I found out that the old man was blind. The main problem with this was when I looked into the visual recordings, I saw that this man was painting. This confused me. I had to double check if I was not daydreaming from overworking the night before. When I saw that the recordings were the same as the second time, it left me baffled. The confirmation alone urged me to look further into the RSI unit and its construct sensors for more information about the old man and if he had any connections with the relic. After a long night of work, I was finally able to get the outward detection device out of its container, located near the main crystal spring drive. From there, I hooked it up to the device. I hooked up the device to the Delphi 1 and checked it for any abnormalities between the time of the RSI unit meeting the old man and the RSI unit ending the conversation. I let the Delphi 1 run overnight and came back the next day. Sadly, even with the newly gained information, no abnormalities were found. So after 3 hours of comparing several data sheets, I finally found an abnormality in the RSI navigation processor. It is funny how the solution to this problem is so simplistic yet easily overlooked. I would have paid if I would have paid attention to the whole story. I would have find it way earlier. This reminds me of my wife. She always said not to overthink things in daily life, but I guess that's a flaw that I have and that I still need to overcome one day. After all, not everyone is perfect. Well, looks like I'm getting off topic again. Anyway, this documentation is far too important to lose to time. The main problem that I found was that the location of the RSI unit was fixed for a duration of 2 hours. When I calibrated the coordinates, I found out that it got stuck on the edge of the village borders before moving to a new location. As stated earlier, I looked into the several data sheets to see if the RSI unit had a malfunction at the time of the event. After noting my findings, I only had to check if the RSI unit registered its own movement, which it did. And that is how I found out that the RSI unit was moving, even though its location was fixed. With the abnormality found, I decided to look back into the route that the RSI took. Dara found its last known location within the village before the abnormality started. Was the local inn called the Sleeping Sheep. According to the local information, its owner is Maria Wolfman. According to the monitor census, she is a strong-looking woman with gray hair. So after looking into the recordings of the conversation between the lady and the RSI unit, it looked like the RSI unit was asking for directions to a temple of Granda in the nearby mountain area. According to the information I found in one of the old books in the local library, Granda is the goddess of purity. I must say, I still have no idea what a goddess of purity wants with this terribly optimized construct. But one thing is for sure, I found the cause of the abnormality. Jack always said never to interfere with God's business, or you get burned. Normally I would have taken this lightly, but after the accident with the BD-100, things like a God presence hit really close to home. So, taking in consideration that a god had interfered, I decided that the relic would not have been taken away from the CSI unit. Since most of the information is now considered a god's conversation, I don't want to get myself further involved into this mess. So after 2 hours of deep self-reflection, I decided not to report the rest of my findings into this documentation and release the CSI unit into the wild to prevent any further escalations of any events. After all, I already have my hair wrapped around my head from the portalization device and its problematical recalibrations. Signed, Head Engineer Jonas Jakonovich. There you go.
That's really good.
Yeah. Very entertaining. You make office work very entertaining.
Very mundane, I would say.
I had to step away for a moment, but then all of a sudden I heard what I thought was a German doctor who went insane.
Oh, it's Russian.
Oh, that's Russian, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about, this guy just figuring out, like, what the fuck did you bring home? Excuse me.
It's
so much paperwork.
Very entertaining. I like that's some world building too, and I like the way it's lively. I like the lively dialogue.
Yeah, he's like a very dreamy. He's like a very he's a very ambitious person. This guy in the normal story that I'm writing, he's like the head person of it. But I wanted to write a little short story about one of his findings. So he creates constructs for this king that is actually a very bad king.
Oh,
but
that guy?
He's a bad guy, but he gets himself entangled into a very thick mass of problems after an accident with the BD-100, which is like a big giant laser beam of doom, which creates. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, is that the same king? The one I think he got killed or something?
Yes.
Insane and evil. Oh, okay, that guy.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, that guy. So this guy is like, I'm not taking any fucking chances with, any gods because I have already seen what kind of mess this is gonna be bringing to my doorstep. So you know what? Fine, I will release this construct into the world and not deal with it anymore.
Fair enough.
Because it saves a lot of paperwork.
It's not his job.
Yeah. But he is trying to fix the portal machine in the background. That's the idea. Like, he's trying to get this portal machine up and running to get the fuck out of the situation that he's already in.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
And I like to, with the short story, I try to build up his frustrations with, the problem in the background while, writing this whole documentation. But yeah, so
cool.
All right, Derek, go ahead.
Alrighty, so last time we left off, sorry, Aviana woke up, got some got some late lunch, early dinner, and then she arrived at the Dove's branch, which is where the chancellor told her to go to find out about her job. The doorman told her to go in the backyard, and when she went there, she was attacked. Aviana eventually started fighting back, but the shadowy figure overpowered her pretty easily, actually. And then she was knocked unconscious, and that's where we are today. All right, so give me one moment. All right. As Aviana came to, she groaned weakly and felt as though her brain was smacking against her skull. Her body ached, causing her to whine in pain. Causing her to whine, which was only compounded by the cuts that had been made onto her arm and leg, throbbing every other moment. Yet, despite the aches and pains, she felt oddly comfortable, like she was laying on a soft padding instead of the hard and cold courtyard floor. She also felt something binding her wounded arm and leg, as though it had been wrapped around tightly, shutting the wounds closed. She opened her eyes slowly and found that her vision was hazy, and began blinking in an attempt to clear them. Once her vision cleared, she saw a wooden ceiling hanging overhead, as well as a spot of light dancing above. She whimpered softly as she turned her head to the right and saw a small wooden table with a lit candle on it, the flame gently bouncing on the wick. Beneath the candle was a roll of wool bandages nestled against it, along with a pair of iron scissors. The longer Aviana kept her eyes open, the more the light from the table began to irritate her throbbing skull. She closed her eyes just as they were beginning to haze over again, and moved her head straight, as the pain slowly drifted away. She attempted to lift herself off the bed, placing her hands behind her for leverage, but as she tried to push, her body roared in protest. She hadn't even lifted herself halfway up before her elbows shook violently and gave way, causing her to let out a sharp cry and fall onto her back. Thankfully, the fall wasn't painful, as the padding cushioned most of it and made her want to drift back into unconsciousness as her body nestled back into the padding. Though the padding taunted her with comfort, she knew she couldn't relax. Even with her cursory look of the room, she knew this was a place she didn't recognize. She didn't know where she was, who had brought her here, or more worryingly, when they'd be back. Grunting, she made another attempt to at least sit up on the bed, but couldn't even manage to lift her arms anymore. Suddenly, she heard the sound of footsteps, causing her to go still, hoping they would go away. When she heard them get closer, she relaxed her body and began to breathe slowly, pretending to be asleep. Just then, the door creaked open. "How do you feel?" a gentle feminine voice asked as the footsteps entered the room. Aviana stayed still, the only motion from her being the rising and falling of her chest as she feigned sleep. Suddenly, she heard a gentle laugh. "I know you're awake, dear. And there's no need to fear. I'm with the Alchemist Union. I just need to know how hurt you are," the voice said gently. Aviana sighed in relief at the word alchemist. "I feel like I got kicked by a horse," Aviana replied as she attempted to open her eyes, only to close them immediately as her temples had begun to violently throb. "I see. Well, I have just the thing for that," the voice said. Aviana heard the sound of something being placed on the table next to her. "Can you move your head?" Aviana whined as she turned towards the voice, but kept her eyes closed. I can, but it hurts I can't get up. It hurts too much," Aviana whimpered. The voice said nothing, but suddenly Aviana felt a soft hand gently cradle the back of her head and slowly guide her to a sitting position. Then hold it there. Then hold it and kept her head stable. "Drink this. It'll make you feel better," the voice said. Aviana felt something placed against her lips that felt like the rim of a cup, and then a soothing heat coming off of what she guessed to be some kind of medicine. She slowly began to drink when she spit out the medicine onto her shirt and pants. Her tongue was assaulted with a horrendous taste. It was as if somebody took rotten wood, wild mushrooms, sage, and garlic, burned it all, then somehow made a drink that was also burnt. It was only then that the smell finally came to her. It was every bit as putrid as the taste itself, causing her to scrunch up her nose in disgust. "I know it tastes bad, but trust me, it's a tried and true method," the voice said calmly but firmly. Aviana shuddered and steeled her stomach. as she slowly drank the liquid, making every attempt to have it avoid it touching her tongue again. Every moment she drank was a moment of agony, but the smell and taste almost made her forget about the pain that was in the rest of her body. After she finished, Aviana panted and coughed as the warm feeling from the medicine ran down her throat and stomach, making her feel somewhat better, but the taste wouldn't leave her tongue or nose. She felt her head slowly being guided back down onto the padding before the hand left her body. Her stomach rumbled angrily, and her head began to throb and pulse with a worse pain than before. Yet, miraculously, after a few moments, the pain from her head and body began to disappear until she was left with nothing more than the occasional ache. I feel better, Aviana said, surprised. Good, then let's get you up, the voice said cheerfully. She felt the same soft and gentle hand take hers and lift her into a sitting position. Aviana opened her eyes slowly and was surprised when the light didn't hurt, but her vision was still hazy, requiring her to blink several times. When her vision cleared, she saw a woman looking down at her with a sweet smile on her face. She was a blonde-haired woman with a thin and youthful face. Yet as Aviana looked into the woman's bright blue eyes, she realized that they were deep and older than her face had let on. Her hair was somewhat shorter than the way most women in the city kept it, falling just above her shoulders. She wore a silver pendant in the shape of a crescent moon on a golden chain around her neck, and a reddish-brown dress that ran from her shoulders all the way down to her wrists and ankles. Who are you? Aviana asked weakly, feeling a little woozy, as though she was about to vomit. I'm Raquela Wayne. It's a pleasure to meet you, the woman said, bowing her head. Wayne, are you related to the Chancellor? Aviana asked softly, shaking her head slightly, hoping it would knock away the remaining aches and pains. Well, I should hope not. He is my husband, after all. Raquela responded with a smile, as she took a seat on the wooden stool that was next to the nightstand. After the dizziness and Aviana's head and stomach left, she took a quick look around the room. It was a small and simple one, with only a nightstand next to her, 4 wooden walls and a ceiling, and the wooden door Raquela had entered from. When she looked down, she noticed that the padding she had been laying on was actually a bed, and the bed was surrounded by a light brown frame that housed a soft, comfortable mattress she was sitting on. On top of the mattress was a comforter. Sorry, I heard an echo. Was a comforter with a white and blue squared patterned quilt that felt so soft and warm underneath her hands. Where am I? How did I get here? Aviana mumbled. Raquela took a deep breath and her brow furrowed, as though she was deep in thought, before looking deep in Aviana's eyes. What is the last thing you remember? I remember... Aviana lowered her head as she attempted to collect her thoughts. Recollect the events that led her here. She found her skull beginning to throb again as she forced the haze and fog in her mind away. Suddenly, she recalled the shadowy figure from the courtyard, looming over her with its sword at her neck. I remember being attacked. Your husband tricked me, Aviana said, her voice trembling with fear and anger. He told me he was going to give me a job. Instead, I was almost killed. Aviana shouted as tears began to run down her cheeks. The kind and soothing smile that had once been on Raquela's lips departed, leaving only a scornful look of disgust. Aviana went silent as she realized in horror what she had just done. Not only had she yelled at an adult, but the wife of the Chancellor. She had heard tales of people being beaten over less. Aviana quickly shut her eyes and whimpered, waiting for her deserved retribution. However, instead of fists smacking against her cheek, she felt a soft wool rubbing against her cheeks, clearing the tears from them. When she opened her eyes, she saw Raquela putting one of the unused bandages with the end now damp back on the table. You've been through a lot tonight, but I promise you are safe now. I can assure you my husband did not trick you, Raquela said, her voice gentle and somewhat soothing. When Aviana looked at her face again, she found the scornful look was gone and replaced with one of concern, maybe even worry. Though Aviana felt somewhat reluctant to believe her, she at least sounded honest. I apologize, Lady Wayne. I did not mean to be so rude, Aviana said softly, rubbing additional tears from her eyes. All is forgiven, my dear. A girl your age should not have been treated in such a way, Raquela's voice said, softly and with a comforting tone. Once Aviana collected herself and wiped the last few tears from her cheek, she carefully observed the small room she was in once more turned back to Raquela. Where am I? You're in one of the bedrooms of the Dove's branch. My husband occasionally houses guests here, Raquela replied reassuringly. How did I get here? Marcel and Carrick carried you in after they drove away your attacker. Carrick? Yes, Carrick is the branch's doorman, as well as the caretaker. You should have met him when you walked in. Aviana nodded and the room went silent as the fog that infected her mind slowly began to dissipate further and her thoughts grew clearer. Nothing was making sense. Why hadn't the Chancellor been outside when she had gotten there? The doorman said he was. Why did the shadowy figure attack her? And more importantly, how did it know she would be there? Is that why the Chancellor had her buy a dagger? Because he knew the figure would be there? The more she thought about it, the more her head began to ache, and she could feel her body beginning to tremble. Don't strain yourself, dear. You need rest, Raquela said, breaking the silence. I'm sorry, but none of this makes any sense. I thought I was here to get a job. Why was I attacked? Who was that person? Why was I sent here to meet the Chancellor instead of at your home? Aviana cried out, frustrated, her voice becoming hoarse. You are here because I believe you are qualified to be here, a familiar voice replied. Aviana turned her head to the doorway and saw the Chancellor standing in the doorframe, his hands behind his back. He was wearing a similar-looking regal yellow shirt and equally fancy gray pants that she had seen him wearing the day before. As Aviana looked up on the man's face, she couldn't see any indication as to whether or not he was happy to see her. This is a very exclusive place, Aviana. You should be fortunate to even step foot in here, let alone rest in one of our beds. The Chancellor continued as he stared down at her, never breaking eye contact. What does that mean, though? Why am I qualified to be here? Aviana asked, her nails digging into her palms as her voice began to rise. She could hear herself sounding rude again, but couldn't find the will to care as she was about to yell at another authority figure. The Chancellor's expression didn't change despite her outburst, and he retained his calm demeanor as he walked into the room. You are qualified to be here because you are precisely what we are looking for. You have no name, no family, no ties to anyone in this city, and those you did are gone. Everyone looks down on you and thinks very little of you, if they even think about you at all. That is why you are the most qualified candidate for this job, and to join our organization. Organization? What organization? I thought I was just here to get a job, Aviana retorted angrily. I will not tell you its name just yet. At least, not until you and I convene with the other members. However, I promise if you agree to join us, we will make something of you. You will be educated and trained in our various arts and teachings, and in doing so, you will be given the means to make an actual life for yourself, with or without a name, the Chancellor said calmly but firmly. Aviana listened intently to the man's words, noticing his tone never changed, nor did his expression. You still haven't told me what my job will be, Aviana replied, looking into his eyes. You will have many jobs in your time working for us, but your primary duty will be as an informant, the Chancellor answered. Aviana shook her head. I'm sorry, what do you mean by an informant? Aviana answered back. I want you to become a thief for us, the Chancellor responded. A thief? Aviana mumbled. I don't think I can be a thief. I was always told that it was wrong to steal things, Aviana responded, thinking about the time she tried to steal an apple only to get a lecture from a very angry Merrick, then a much angrier matron Alessia. Your primary duty will not be stealing valuables like a common tramp. You will be stealing something far more precious. Information, the Chancellor said firmly. Aviana turned to Raquela and looked at her, hoping she might say something or do something. Yet all Raquela did was simply nudge her head back towards the Chancellor. I don't understand. How is stealing information different from stealing valuables or from other people? Aviana asked as she returning her focus to the Chancellor. We are not criminals out to line our own pockets or satisfy our own worldly desires. Our duty is to ensure the safety of this city and the country. For countless generations, we have defended Tyrion from the shadows, spying on both our enemies and allies, all to ensure that our people remain safe. How does stealing from people help Tyrion remain safe? Aviana retorted. The Chancellor smiled as though amused by the question. You can have all the men, resources, and defenses in the world, yet even the slightest lack of information can make all of that worthless. For example, think about the siege of Lareth that was conducted several years ago. At the mention of the name Lareth, Aviana felt a gasp leave her lips as she focused in on the Chancellor. We had more guardians than we do now. They were even better trained than our current ones. Yet it did little good when our enemies were at the gate, the Chancellor started. If we had known an invasion was planned, if we had known an attack on Lancia was a diversion, the city would have been prepared and we would have saved ourselves so much pain. The Chancellor said, as Aviana noticed the look of fury in his eyes, but they didn't seem to be directed at her. So, if I can become a thief, I might be able to save people? Aviana asked softly. That is our hope for you, the Chancellor answered. Aviana's thoughts turned to Merrick, who no doubt had started his own training to defend Tyrion. Yet, he wasn't here right now. He wasn't here now. He couldn't defend anyone while he was gone. Then I'll do it, Aviana said aloud, looking up at the Chancellor. I want to make sure everyone is safe, that no one has to die needlessly, Aviana said firmly. The Chancellor smiled and nodded, but then a cough came from Raquela. Both her and the Chancellor turned towards the woman. Aviana noticed Raquela looking at her husband with displeasure in her eyes. Tell her the rest, Marcel. She deserves to know the risks. Aviana heard the Chancellor cough slightly before returning his gaze to her, his expression now stern and serious. Be aware. If you accept, you cannot turn back. There is no leaving this life once you are a part of it. You will be charged with many difficult tasks. The risk to yourself will be great. You may end up crippled, gravely wounded, if not just dead. So if you do not think you can handle this, I advise you leave now. Though you should realize if you do, my offer is gone, and you will most likely either have to forgo your pride and get a job as a servant, or you will likely starve in the streets, the Chancellor warned. Aviana lowered her gaze from the Chancellor's and sat silently, her thoughts drifting again to her nightmare and the pile of corpses that had littered the streets in it. Then to the corpse of the forgotten girl she had robbed. She could see the skull's eyeless sockets staring back at her, almost taunting her that she would share the same fate. Aviana lifted her head and looked deep into the Chancellor's eyes. I accept, she responded firmly. And that's it for this week.
That's really good.
Very well done. Very well done.
Bravo.
I'm
Thank you.
intrigued.
I
I'll go for it, Johan.
I really like how you how thoughtful the man is of choosing an unperson to become the thief, because technically, even if she would be caught, there is no way she can get from there's no way to redirect the information from her to the man, so to speak. It's an unperson, so she's forgettable. And having a thief that gets information and being very forgettable, it means that she can sit there in the corner listening to your conversation and nobody notices her. So actually, that is a very well done. That's a very smart move on the mentor's part. Let's put it that way. I think I said it correctly.
Yeah, you got it. That was the whole. This is why I had to build up with all the suffering, and the reason why people are not like why people. This is why I had to do everything I'm doing, because this was the build up to the resolution.
I think it paid off.
Yeah,
But you can still do horrible things to her even afterwards.
Oh, easily, yeah. It's going to happen.
you gotta make sure that she one time fails her job and then gets horribly hit or
We're getting there. We're
breaking
we're
bones.
getting there.
Let's see.
I'm honestly very much looking forward to the day when Shadows of Tyrion is published, wherever you're planning on publishing it. Self-published or regular publishing?
My grandfather, God rest his soul, was supposed to help me get a publisher, but obviously that can't happen now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Thank you.
Aw.
Anyways, but I'm thinking of actually taking this to a real publisher, but I've become so protective of this that I may just end up self-publishing. Like, I'm going to hire a professional editor. That was always the plan, but I am unsure if I want this to go through a publisher or if I want to do this on my own, because I want the story to be pure, if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
Get an
you
agent,
don't
look
want-
for
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
One at a time.
Sorry.
Count Balerion, then Conan.
Okay, I was just going to say, look for an agent.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, see if you can get an agent, and then they haven't. What I heard is, I don't know, I have from experience, but what I heard is that they have an incentive to help you get a publisher because they get a cut in the royalties. That's what I remember being told.
The rub is convincing them to represent you.
Yeah, and you can get loads of rejections apparently. So there's also that.
Yeah.
So when the lady was being scornful, was that directed at Avian or someone else?
That was being directed at her husband because she is not happy that a 12-year-old basically had to be beaten up in order to prove herself. That can't.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
I can't reveal that now because she hasn't accepted, but you guys already know that whole backyard brawl was a test. Like, that was obvious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, coming from his point of view, I think still, you want to make sure that this person is trustworthy to be, the person that's gonna give you the information. So yeah, of course you're gonna beat her up with this test to see if she is trustworthy enough.
Right.
Yeah, from his point of view, yes, of course. But from the woman's point of view, yeah, you're beating a 12-year-old down.
You're beating a 12-year-old child up. You're having a grown man.
Do you really need to do that? I mean, do you really need to do it quite that particular way?
Sinister, don't you?
Well,
Like,
you can,
give her a task and test her by giving her a task.
you the reason why I thought about it was because, and this will be revealed later, it's to test Aviana's flight or fight response. Because if she's caught and she, runs away, let's say she gets caught, right? Or she doesn't even try to fight. Well, what good is she then? Like, I get she's a thief, but if you get caught even as a thief, you kind of need to fight your way out. It was a test of her resolve more than anything else.
Yeah,
Well,
she has a point.
I believe she will be able to train herself in the way of the dagger, but probably.
Yeah, one small word choice, laying for lying, like near the beginning. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew I was going to screw that up, but I wasn't sure which way it went. But
People get confused a lot.
yeah, that one is,
That was messy.
If you are a dyslexic, you need to have Microsoft Sam read it all out for you to see if your story even makes sense.
Oh, I read this thing 3 times, twice or 3 times each time before I present, when I'm editing.
I already have I believe 10 times already let Microsoft Sam speak this short story out. It takes so long to write it properly. And then it also takes so long to write it properly with the right amount of words and correct native languages.
So just a quick question, because I've been reading from a continuous story. What do you guys think of the whole thing so far?
Lovely.
What of that? So sorry, go on.
So far, I'm trying to kind of I think it works that kind of I don't have a very good picture of the political landscape yet, but it kind of seems as though kind of we're kind of I think that maybe a prologue to kind of establish what the political tension is right now, so it can kind of segue into this.
You can put dialogue too. Oh, sorry.
whether or not you want to do that is up to you. That was just something that came to my mind.
I appreciate that, but the thing is, I don't want to do that because the whole entire idea of this book is that you're supposed to see the world through Aviana's eyes, period. She's kind of the only perspective you're supposed to get, which I think is actually very useful.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, I can see that,
yeah. Like,
Well-
things will be revealed once I figure them out, more importantly, but as she grows, it's sort of like, again, if you tell a 12-year-old child now a political landscape, they'll go, okay, so. But if you tell a 17-year-old girl that, who is now not only monetarily, but also career-wise invested in it, it has a lot more punch, and she'll need to know this information.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, you can include stuff about that, like in dialogue or something. You don't need a prologue. You can have people refer to it in dialogue.
Oh yeah, like she overhears things, and then she may not think anything of it, but like at
Yeah.
the time,
When I was 9, well, I mean, when I was a kid, not when I was 12, but when I was younger, I wasn't even sure what a party was. And when my father would tell me about the Democratic and Republican parties, I saw a bunch of people at a picnic table with funny hats on. So,
well, Tarek, if you, I think you're right about that. You know, you have your first-person view, and you want to keep it first-person view to make sure that, how do you say it? To make sure that you're still invested into the story. So I would say build the story up slowly from her eyes with the political environment
Implications,
around it. Just make it like some background. Maybe she finds a letter or something like that, and she reads.
she can't read.
Yeah, exactly. She cannot
No.
read, so why would she know?
Exactly, she can't. Good point.
So-
She can't even read.
I have no idea how to read.
Yeah, exactly. So that is like it doesn't have to be there. It can also be just building up slowly. Like for instance, like you have this person information. She needs to listen into somebody's information, and then she is like, huh, what does this mean? And then she asked the mentor about this, and he's like, well, allow me to tell you this story about bloody bloody blue and why it's so important that we're following this man.
Once the training starts, which is coming very soon, like within the next 2 or 3 chapters, we start to get an idea of what this landscape of the city looks like what the
Exactly.
stuff is going on, because now her world has sort of opened up to be observant to the rest of the things that are happening around her. So that's the idea coming forward from now, because we're leaving the point where she is just this street urchin. Now we're entering the point where she is becoming somebody on her, like becoming into her own as an actual person.
Exactly. So that's good. You don't have to have here is the wide world and then go for the no. You don't have to. Just do it your way, man. I'm sure you will be able to do it. I have fully faith in you.
Thank
and
you,
I think a lot of
John.
people have.
I do too.
Thank you, guys.
I like Aviana as a character. I think your character work is very, very good. with
yeah,
her.
very engaging.
Yeah, and like she feels like she's a kid, and I think that is honestly like kind of hard to do sometimes, where you like write a realistic kid character that doesn't feel like they're a Spielberg kid.
I that's been the hardest part, honestly, like keeping her as this child, because one of the things I want to keep even as she grows up is this sort of innocence, because my biggest fear, and this is going to happen, I know it, people fall in love with the little girl, but then as the book goes on, she grows up into, you know, an adult, and I'm so worried people are going to get to the adult part and go, I don't want to see her grown up. I want to see her as, you know, the kid. I want to see her as this little innocent that is just trying to make her way in the world.
Yeah, I guess that's the risk. Yeah, world building points are actually more interesting. No offense.
Don't you worry, Tarek. I think people will love the character no matter what. If the character is rock solid and and you have the character development properly done, like properly instead of terribly, I think it will go. I think it will go well. And as long as you keep the character, as long as you keep that character trait of innocence with her, like it's a part of her personality, that doesn't change over the time because it is still with her, then I think it will be fine.
This is my last point because I want to give Dunn his turn, and I apologize, Dunn. You just know me. You know me. I love talking about this. I actually do genuinely love talking about this work. One of the chapters I have in the way off in the future is one where she's in the middle of training and everything, and she's kind of developed her routine. It's kind of like, I have sword fighting this day. I have my dance lesson. Like, she does learn to dance. It's a big part of her character this day. I have schooling this day. I have stealth training this day. And, she develops this routine. She's getting ragged because, she's 12 going on 13, and it's exhausting. So one day her mentor tells her, she's picking up her sword when her mentor walks in. She's going, okay, let's do this. And the mentor says, put that down. We're going somewhere. And she says, okay. He takes her fishing, and he says to her, you have a lot of expectation is on you. We expect a lot from you, but you can't be killing yourself doing this. Therefore, one day every 2 weeks, I want you to take a day off and do something you genuinely enjoy.
No comment. No comment about. Let's stick on Tarek's story, which is more interesting.
Okay.
The butts.
I actually look forward to whenever you put it out via either self-publishing or regular publishing. Just tell me, and let's have a stream kind of talking about it.
Wow!
I will be sure to do that. Yeah.
I'd be down to do that.
Oh God! We'll just shut up about. This chap is talking about his works, and everyone's mind is down in the gutter. Just shut up, you can for me sick.
Her dance teacher named Catherine. She has the finest ass in all the city.
Are we in D&D territory now? Benioff territory?
No. We're talking about thick thighs and big buds.
Thick thighs, that delicious gypsy ass.
Benioff. This reminds me of Benioff's novel.
Don't you worry. If you read a lot of manga, then you will see the thick thighs are everywhere.
Luckily, I don't read manga.
Weak.
Well, in some cases, you're not missing much.
Nope.
Yeah.
Just Act 1 in its entirety is available on the Discord via the Google Doc link I put in there, just in case anybody cares to read it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll give it a look.
As long as we're highlighting things from the chat, Hypatia says y'all are so not romantic, and she has a point.
The thing is, honestly, you better give your girl a compliment that her butt's better than your fictional character's butt. Or else
okay, hold on. Catherine may have the finest ass in all of Tyrion, but Becca, you have the finest ass in all the world.
This is a touching moment in the story.
And so the great romance begins.
The great romance begins or ends. I don't know what I just did, but it probably wasn't good regardless.
Probably not.
I believe you didn't roll a dice. Check out the result. So there is still chance.
I hope you have hit points. That's better than killing children, anyway.
Oh my God!
She's not wrong.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
Don, you better start before we keep going. I apologize. I'm so sorry. Every time I'm on, I take 20 minutes for this. I am sorry, but go before I say something else stupid.
Okay.
But it is beautiful.
It is.
Okay.
It is a love story for the ages that we will
Don't,
never see its like again.
don't do it. Don't do a gross one. Don't do a gross one right
No,
away.
Wait, what happened to
No.
what happened to the other leg then?
Okay, so this is not one of the gross ones. This is the second half of the prologue of the Lost Legion. The first book I ever published. I read the first half a little bit ago, last week I believe, and what has happened is the first little section of the chapter was the Emperor telling his two little daughters, the princesses, about this legendary figure named Valcarpurian. And then the rest of the chapter was Valcarpurian preparing for an assault, and kind of us getting to know a bit of the man behind the legend. And now we're kind of going to see him in action. Alrighty. All around Valcar, the Legion moved like a massive leviathan, each maniple moving with exact discipline. At dawn, the cover attack began as soon as the catapults were wheeled into place. The mage sappers set fire to the catapult stones, then the engines let fly with their deadly payload. Screams and yells were audible even this far away from the city. From his vantage atop the hill, Valcar coolly watched as the catapults fired again and again, smoke trailing up from the houses behind the walls as the burning stones fell among the buildings inside the city. The strike team is in position, my prince. Valcar turned around and saw one of his lieutenants, Dania, right up beside him. She was not amazed, but she had certain skills that made her useful. Thank you, Dania, he remarked. Are your heroes ready to hold their nerve as they distract the enemy? Dania had been the head of a new class of soldiers simply called Wandering Heroes. Some of these so-called heroes were mages who had completed their training and gone off to seek glory in personal adventures. Valcar didn't see the harm in these heroes. They wanted glory and very likely money to financially cover their adventures. He was willing to give both, as long as they did what they were told and didn't go running off because something or other didn't live up to their expectations. Heroes were only a few small steps above mercenaries, in his opinion. At least heroes stuck to their contracts better than mercenaries. Memories of him fighting a group of bandits single-handedly popped into his head. Valcar froze and pushed away those memories. That hadn't happened. He had never fought a group of soldiers on his own in his whole life. Had he? He briefly examined the memory, but could only see that the armor and weapons were extremely archaic before the memory vanished. Valcar brought himself back to the moment, shaking his head. It was as if his memories were slippery. Of course. Of course. Dania didn't seem to display any annoyance at his slight wariness about using them in such a critical methodical part of his plan. Good, he remarked. Tell them to quickly get into position and prepare to infiltrate the city. Captain Dania nodded and rapped out quick commands to her mounted soldiers and the rest of her command. Dania and her co-hosts saluted and rode off to their positions. So how much do we trust these heroes? Bane asked. I trust Dania, Valcar said. She's got a good head on her shoulders, and her men will follow her anywhere. Bane folded her arms. Fair enough, he admitted. I prefer to use legionnaire cavalry in such a critical part of the plan. We don't have any trained horse archers yet, Valcar said quietly. The catapults continued pelting the city with flaming projectiles. Some of the rebels tried to use their own crude makeshift engines to hit the Legion's catapults, but their range wasn't far enough. A slow grin spread across Valcar's face. He had their attention. Now the rest of his plan could ensue. All of the rebel forces were committed to the frontal attack, which created a massive weakness for him to exploit. The strike force carefully slid around the back wall, flanked by the majority of his mages and 2 squadrons of legionnaire swordsmen. Only a few guards were stationed on the walls, and the attack on the front lines was drawing their attention away from their duty. Valcar raised his hand, fingers spread, then closed his fist. Mages stood and struck the wall tops with bursts of elemental power. The men screamed as they were consumed by flames or turned to ice and shattered in several pieces. Valkar ran forward, motioning to his green mages to begin making handholds for the legionnaires. They ran to the walls and put their hands against the stone fortifications. Large blocks of rocks slid out from the wall, shot up from the walls, creating easy handholds for the rest of the strike force. Valkar's men ran forward and leapt up to grab the protruding rocks. Valkar grasped a handhold and began climbing laboriously up the improvised ladder. The mages waited, drawing on large portions of mana, but they allowed the legionnaires to completely clear the walls before they ascended. Grunting, Valkar pulled himself over the top of the wall, then drew his sword. He didn't see any guards, but there was no reason to be careless. Sensing there was no immediate danger, Valkar motioned his troops forward, keeping an eye out for rebel troops. However, it was as if the streets were deserted. There should have been some kind of guard or patrol in this area, even with the assault on the front. Instead, there was no sign of any kind of life at all. Valkar kept looking around. With his white mana, his mind was expanded to take in a nearly unlimited amount of sensory and intellectual information, but nothing seemed to be a threat. Their strategy had been anticipated, which was unlikely. Then there was something nasty waiting for them in the city center. Cautiously, Valkar raised a hand for the maniple to halt, then pointed down a side alley with his thumb and forefinger extended. The first cohort moved down the alley, followed by a number of mages. Valkar motioned down a left passage, and the second did as the first had. Around him was a group of 20 mages and his personal bodyguard. Now, for the risky part. I have a feeling that someone or something is waiting for us in the square, he said quietly. The mages nodded slightly, and their crystals began glowing softly as they began drawing on the reserves. It's probably something bad, something I can't quite put my finger on. But whatever it is, ambush or something else, be ready. The mages and his bodyguards nodded. The city center was as empty as the streets, but Valkar could see a number of lights in the windows of the inner keep. Eyes on the fortress, Valkar made a curt motion toward the keep. The mages attacked, hurling balls of fire at the windows. That was when the dam burst. At least 20 massive creatures entirely created from magma rose from the stones and blocked the mages' attacks with their gigantic hands. Valkar groaned. Lava golems. Wonderful. He had known something bad would be waiting for them. Scatter! Valkar roared, drawing his sword as he spoke. Don't let any of those hulks get his paws on you. Reacting immediately, the red mages backed away from the fighting. They would only make the creatures stronger if they were to pelt them with fireballs. The blue-red mages came forward and began hurling bolts of ice at the golems. One of the creatures roared and thrust his hands into the ground. Rumbling, it ripped free a fistful of lava from the earth. The monster threw its handful of lava at the mages, pelting it with ice. However, the mages were trained for this. Instantly they huddled close together and created a shield of ice circling their position. With a splash, the lava struck the barrier and turned to rock. Wear them down! Valkar commanded, hurling his own blast of ice at the enemy. His own torment was just as large as the 10 mages put together. Once we destroy them, we have a clear shot at the fortress. The golems moved slowly and with no grace or coordination, but their durability was slowing Valkar and his men down. They had to focus on only 2 at a time, and there were at least 16 more to go. One of the golems got in a lucky shot and killed one of the mages. Valkar had done what he could for the few he could save, but most of them were damaged beyond his ability to heal. Valkar looked around. There had to be some way to defeat the golems quickly. The solution was so obvious he berated himself for a fool for not realizing it. Hold the golems here, he bellowed, raising his sword in both hands and began to draw on his reserve of blue mana. I'm going after the mage controlling the creatures. The golems looked as surprised as their gloppy faces could physically express as they stared at the lone prince and charging toward them, waving his sword glowing with icy energy. The first golem was sliced in half by the icy sword, crystallizing the creature and shattering it. The second tried to grab at him, but Valkar hacked off its head and jumped off the golem's shoulder. With a burst of white mana, he flew upward, easily soaring over the tops of the golem's head and landing on top of the keep wall. Valkar drew in a bit of blue mana to see any magical traces and found a faint line leading toward a small tower. The moment he found it, though, it began moving away at fast speed. "Oh, no, you don't," Valkar muttered, burning through his remaining reserves of blue mana and creating a bend in space. Valkar dropped right in front of the fleeing man, a ratty fellow with fleeing eyes. The ratty man screamed and attempted to draw his sword, but Valkar struck the man in the head with his gauntleted fist. The man's neck broke with a sickening crack. Bonelessly, he dropped to the ground, dead. Valkar was surprised to see how easily the man had died, but the job was done nevertheless. Valkar looked down toward the courtyard and saw that the golems had melted to slag heaps. Grunting, Valkar eyed his dead opponent. For some reason, he had strange, filed teeth. With a grimace, Valkar looked around for more enemies, but the damage had been done. Now that the golems were gone, the mages were already advancing through the gates. Valkar could see the two legionnaire cohorts scaling the walls, Eep's walls from the rear. The double infiltration was not a commonly used tactic, mostly because of the potential of throwing away troops, but Valkar had found it saved lives and time, as opposed to an outright siege. That was why he always led them personally. The frontal attack was still going on. He could still clearly hear the shouts of terrified men and clearly hear the impacts of projectiles crashing into the walls and houses of the city. Moving quickly into the main building, a large keep based in the ancient style of pointed turrets and square battlements, Valkar began motioning his troops to keep alert as they entered the castle. Even if this Denark fellow was a fool, he probably wasn't foolish enough to pull all his forces to the front. There had to be some kind of guard protecting the keep. No noble would be stupid enough not to have some type of bodyguard defending his sorry skin. Grunting, Valkar entered through the front door as brazenly as he could. Instead of knocking the door open with a burst of air, he shattered the locks with delicate fingers of ice. With a grunt, he kicked the doors open with a loud crash. The legionnaires swarmed into the keep, swords drawn. The mages followed close behind, their hands dripping with flames or frost. Despite the spectacular fashion of their entrance, there was no rebel in sight. Still wary, Valkar began preparing some deadly spells. There had to be some sort of trap. There was no other option. Nobody could be this stupid. "This is either the most clever trap I've ever seen," Valkar muttered, "or the stupidest thing I've ever seen a nobleman do." Garm shrugged. "Denark is supposed to be a military man," he remarked contemptuously. "Perhaps the rumors of his prowess, martial or otherwise, don't quite match the reality." Valkar nodded with a stark grimace. Maybe this Denark was so insane he had no concept of reality. As they moved through the keep, Valkar began to think that Denark had already abandoned the keep. The legionnaires reported no signs of human life, and especially since there was very little, the life period. After what felt like an hour, Valkar began to swear in exasperation. "It's no use," he spat disgustedly. "The coward has probably fled already. We'll have to wait a few years before he comes back into the open again." Garm was about to nod when he flinched and began rubbing his temples. "What is it?" Valkar asked quickly. Garm's head shook, not in denial, in contemplation. "I can feel something," he muttered. "It's faint, but it's coming from behind that door there." He finished, pointing at a large, ornately carved door. Valkar didn't wait further. He smashed the door open and gasped at the sight before him. Garm's face contorted in disgust. Some of the legionnaires who could see partially into the room either looked away or emptied their stomachs. Someone had been hung from the neck and skinned alive from the feet up. Bloody chunks of flesh littering the room and a steady stream of blood dripping from the clothes of the butchered corpse falling into an already large puddle. As Valkar tore his eyes away from the gory sight, he noticed that others had been flayed alive before the hanged man. "I think that we've found our upstart claimant and his bodyguards, Valkar said as calmly as he could manage. He gritted his teeth at the brutality. Memories floated up in his head. His parents dead on the ground, a bloody sword on his hand. Valkar still remembered the horrible day. He had been 11 or maybe 12, still playing with a toy sword in the main room of their small hut. He believed even then that someday he would be a soldier like his father had. Shouts coming from the east had drawn his attention toward them, but they had scared his mother and father to no end. In a fright, he'd grabbed his arm and dragged him toward the closet while his father took his bow and sword from the mantelpiece and rushed outside. His mother's frightened face burned inside Valkar's brain. She had been so scared. Valkar tried to comfort her, but he wasn't successful. War howls turned to jeers and calls of derision, and the sound of four men falling to the ground in quick succession told Valkar that his father was giving the bandits a fight. But there were too many for him. Furtively, Valkar peeked through the door of the closet to see his father fight off the bandits, but instead he saw his father, his hero, the ideal of what a man should be, skewered like a suckling pig by a scarred man with a long lance. Valkar screamed and rushed out the door, brandishing his toy sword. Desperately, his mother had tried to snatch him backward, but he was too fast for her. Unable to control himself, Valkar screamed the most horrible words he knew at the bandits, striking at the legs of their horses with a wooden sword. Surprisingly, two of the horses' legs had buckled, and Valkar bludgeoned one of them senseless, and the other was killed by a lucky blow to the eye. Then he heard the screams of his mother go silent. Shocked, he had turned around to see his mother fall from the ground with an arrow through her stomach. Then Valkar had screamed even louder, dropping his toy sword to the ground and holding his head in his hands. Then he had felt a terrible anger, an anger he had never felt before. He looked over at his father's corpse, or rather at his father's sword. A bandit tried to seize him and cut his throat, but Valkar evaded him easily. The bandits tried to grab him, but Valkar seized his father's sword and hacked the hand off of the first bandit who tried to grab him. The man and scream cut off sharply. Valkar leaped forward, hacking off several horses' legs and stabbing any of the bandits who came within reach of the sword. He felt a fire with energy, and he fought with a skill even he hadn't known he had possessed. Valkar had fought like a master swordsman that day, even until he had finally slain every one of the bandits. Once all the bandits were dead, Valkar had sunk to the ground and cried like a baby for what felt like hours and hours. The horrible deaths of his parents and bandits had made him drop the sword from nervous fingers. After he had cried himself hoarse, he got up and began digging a pair of graves for his parents. He marked each of their graves with a large black stone carved with their names, Jonath and Lilith. Valkar kept his father's sword. It was much better than any of the other swords of the bandits, and Valkar would not have soiled himself with one of their weapons. He took all the money and food he could from the house, then had taken one of the bandit horses for his steed. The animal was far better than anything on the farm, and Valkar needed speed to get away from the place where his life had ended. Valkar frowned. He hadn't thought about that event for a while, but now that he did, it felt wrong. That memory, it felt false to him. He didn't know why, but it felt wrong. The logic of it, for one thing, was completely absurd. He shouldn't have had that kind of strength at that time. In fact, he distinctly remembered that when he had come to enlist, he had been extremely clumsy and weak for several months before finding his stride. And there was just a part of him that found the memory false. Briefly, he prodded at the memory, trying to punch through the illusion. It resisted him. Valkar suddenly realized he had been distracting himself from the sight in front of him. He forced himself to coldly examine the bloody carcasses and tried to discern what exactly had happened. Who? Garm swallowed slowly, then continued. Who or what could do this? I don't know, Valkar replied honestly, and I don't care. Our mission right now is quell the rebellion and then investigate this anomaly at the Crystal Mines. Why, how can you be so calm? One of the green mages, a very religious woman named Niela, demanded, shaking her fist at him. This man was tortured and mutilated to death. A mockery of the gods. Valkar clenched his fist. He couldn't deal with this right now. He had to figure out if he was going crazy or not. I am calm, he grated, because this man was an enemy of the Empire. A general who weeps at the death of his enemies devalues the lives of his men, he quoted. Garum and the other legionnaires nodded in approval. Niela glared at him. Don't cite at the creeds in the face of such blasphemy, my lord, she spat, judging the corpses. Aren't we at least going to hunt down the beasts who did this? Surely this is the act of some cult. We will find who did this, Valkar replied, a lot more calmly than he felt. But right now the Empress has commanded that we finish our work here, then make sure that or to find whatever is creating this anomaly in the mines. Whoever did this is long gone by now, and we don't have time to find them. Fists clenched. Niela looked down. I am sorry for questioning you, my prince, she muttered sullenly. I understand your indignation, Niela, Valkar continued. Your anger is justified. But hunting down the people who committed this atrocity cannot take precedence over direct commands from the Empress. He had paraphrased that last part from the alchemic creeds of generalship. The chain of command cannot be broken for any reason. Let's get out of here, Valkar said, motioning away from the room. The others nodded and began moving toward the exits. Valkar wondered if he could ever get the stench of so much blood out of his nostrils. As the cohorts moved forward, Valkar considered all points of attack. Now that the catapults had stopped firing, as per his orders, but how to quell the rebellion with minimal loss of life? The room cap came back into his mind. Yes, that would deplete the rebels' will to fight. Move to surround the rear of the rebels, he commanded. Don't engage. Move to engage not yet. I need to give them a chance to surrender peacefully. Cohort leaders saluted, fist to chest, then moved away to relay their orders to their men. The rebels were bunched beneath the front wall. Valkar muttered a few choice oaths at the stupidity of Denark for giving such orders. But the man was dead. It didn't matter anymore. Valkar motioned his men forward. The rebels yelled in panic as 400 legionnaires appeared behind them, at least 40 mages behind them. Some attempted to assault the legionnaires, but were knocked down by clubs of air. Valkar raised his voice. I am Prince Valkar Purian, he declared. Your rebel leader has been assassinated in the most brutal way possible. If you surrender, your lives will be spared. If you do not, we will be forced to exterminate you to the last man. Angry mutters went through the crowd of masked soldiers. How do we know you didn't kill him? One of the soldiers yelled. Valkar had anticipated this reaction, but it still annoyed him. The Empress does not need to massacre or assassinate fools who set themselves up as petty kings, he said flatly. She defeats them in battle, honorably. The rebels all stared at him. Elsinel's blood, he thought sourly. These people don't give a worm's backside for subtlety. All right, I'll state things as plainly as I can, Valkar called, feeling impatient to get this over with. If you resist, you will all die. You have no leader, and it's probably been so for several days. If you surrender, I promise that none of you will be harmed. Instead, you will be required to serve as auxiliaries in the Legion, as per the codes of war. Some of the rebels looked around at their friends, obviously considering the offer. Valkar decided to push them a bit further. They needed to do this as quickly as possible. I suggest you make your choice now. You have 5 minutes to declare yourselves. Make sure you make the right decision. As a sign of good faith from the rebels, Valkar motioned to his men, signaling the legionnaires to retreat a short distance. The rebel commanders, Valkar could deduce by the insignias on the armor that they were officers, all conferred in a heated discussion in the middle of their troops. Clearly, they were aware they stood no chance at this point. With no mages on their side and facing the most highly trained and fighting force in the Empire, they had to see the futility of their predicament. Eventually, the discussion ended, and a large, heavily muscled captain by the red insignia on his chest stepped forward. I am Captain Garvin. We have heard of you, Prince Valkar, he called. According to our reports of you, even your enemies, even enemies, even enemies of the Empire, speak highly of you. You're one of the last few Imperial generals that genuinely care for the men under your command. Valkar stopped his mouth from twisting with a supreme effort of will. True, he was one of the few who had read the classics and adopted the codes and ideals that had been set out by the first High Prince of House Purian. It sickened him that so many of the Empire's generals were so reviled that he was the best of them. So what is your decision, Captain? He asked. The man pulled out his sword and knelt. We will serve you, my prince. You're the only nobleman in the Empire who seems to have any scrap of honor these days. You offered us peace, one another would have simply crushed us. Based on these reports, I can see that your reputation is well founded, Excellency. If you will give us mercy, we will swear our allegiance to you. Valkar put out a hand and placed it on the man's head. I accept your oath, and I name you Lord Arvin of House Purian, he proclaimed. These men shall be accepted into the legion under your command. In matters pertaining to the 6 cohorts that your men will form, only I can gainsay any action you take. The man looked up in startled surprise, then tears came to his eyes. It was an odd sight coming from such a large man. Thank you, my liege, he whispered. Thank you. Valkar turned away from the new lord and turned toward Garum. Give the army the signal, he commanded. Garum nodded and grabbed a flag with a dragon holding a sword emblazoned on the fabric, the symbol of House Purian. The man stood up, ran up to the top of the wall and started waving the flag. Valkar turned back to Garvin. My first command to you, Lord Garvin, open the gates. The man began to salute, then turned the gesture into a bow instead. Valkar nodded in satisfaction. Good. The man knew the respect due someone at his new station. You heard the prince, you sheep-witted layabouts. Open the flaming gates. The soldiers ran to open the gates, but Garvin still looked back at Valkar. Pardon my language, sir, he muttered. Valkar smiled subtly. No, go right ahead with your swearing. Lord Garvin, he remarked dryly. Then on a whim, he added, just don't bloody scream so loudly, you bloody fatherless goat. Garvin gaped at him. Then he began to laugh a hearty belly laugh. Very good, sir, very good. A sudden thought occurred to Valkar. Why didn't you send your golems into battle against my front lines? Garvin frowned. Golems, sire? He asked. I don't know anything about them. We don't have any mages. So someone else was trying to interfere. Valkar nodded slowly, motioning his men forward. The legionnaires and their new allies streamed through the gates toward the main army. Bane and Dania were waiting for him along with their soldiers. I see the plan was a success, sir, my lord, Dania remarked. Is the upstart in custody? Denark is beyond any custody but old Kaizen's, Valkar replied with a slight twist to his mouth. Bane nodded in comprehension. Old Kaizen with the guardian of the afterlife. If you are honest, served faithfully in your calling, and lived a good life, then you are accepted into the long rest of paradise. If you are disloyal, murdered, or committed other unpardonable sins, old Kaizen sends you to damnation and eternal torment. The rebels are now House Purian armsmen, Valkar continued. The garrison leader is now a battalion lord, and their sole commander under me. Post 2 cohorts of the new men inside the city, along with a couple groups of adventurers to begin drawing in more people. Bane bowed slightly. Yes, sir. As his plan began and organizing the defense of the city with Garvin, Valkar began formulating his own plans. And magical discriminations could be quite troublesome, especially if it were one of the Empire's enemies, such as the Delphana Empire in the east. He would take his entire army to the crystal mines. And if the people causing the description were enemies of the Empire, well, the Empire's justice on its enemies was always swift and final. And that'll conclude it for today.
Nice. That
Very
is a
good.
lovely,
Thank you.
lovely thing of about a siege.
Well
That's
done.
lovely. I really liked it. How you described it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
I like the I like the way they characterize the prince, and I think he's able to be merciful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that bit at the end was good, especially.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One small bit of wording was there's a bit where somebody is saying something about there was no life period. That sounded a little colloquial and like contemporary.
Yeah,
for
that's
the
actually not in, that
context.
was actually a misspeaking on my part, since the sentence just cut off.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, let me actually find it and edit it. That's a good point. Mr. Bardley Bard, tear me apart.
Well,
It stank.
Well, it sucked. Quite frankly, it was terrible. You used golems. Why?
Because I based this off of Mage Knight World, and so this was the best way that I could think to put in golems.
In all seriousness, though, it was pretty well done. It was a nice use of mages. It was a nice use of a siege and everything. I actually kind of like the honor bound commander there. It's yeah. Granted, I was kind of thinking you might pull the rug from right up under us, and he's like Elric, where he says, "All right, you're now a baron, but you're a baron of a dead kingdom. Slaughter them all except for him." I honestly thought, I didn't think you were going to do that, but otherwise though, you did a pretty decent job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh God, shut up.
Okay, good. So I guess Valkar is kind of an appealing aspirational hero. What do you think of his weird fake memory, or at least he feels like it's fake? What do you think of that? What do you think?
it gives some mystery to it, I must say myself, which makes it more intriguing to read further if he finds out how or what caused it.
Mm-hmm.
So does he ever find out?
Yes, I'm not D&D.
My question.
You're not D&D, good.
My question on that is, how do you have a fake memory like that?
Refo.
Magic?
Yeah.
People messing about with the engrams and taking away memories and putting memories in there.
If it was oh Lord, how to describe this? If it was magically done, because I'm just thinking about it from a logistical point of view. I'm kind of thinking maybe he was hiding, and this is what he tells himself that happened. That's the only way I'm kind of making a fake memory appear, if you get what I mean. He truly believes in what he did, but in reality, maybe he was a coward, if you get what I mean, as a child.
It is a defense mechanism, but it's not from him directly.
Okay, so it was implanted. Okay.
So, well, it's interesting. There's something out there that's got its eye on the men of Valkar's family. Or maybe it's not out there, maybe it's inside. It could also be that. Whichever. I do promise that it is revealed by the end of book 2, and then the conclusion is book 3. And all of these are out already, so you don't have to wait.
So
All right.
the truth is out there.
Yep.
Just go find it. I
The truth
believe
is
in
out.
you.
Yep, the truth is out there, and I made sure to do give you all of the answers by the end of the books.
That
So-
that is lovely. That gives a
So-
lot of things.
I saw you got a 2-star review done.
Yeah, I
What?
did. He's
Oh,
wrong.
wow.
He's wrong, but it's
Link,
okay.
link to that? I can't see that very well.
Well, it says
Page-
waste of money, don't buy. So
Yeah,
I very much enjoyed this book. You got a 5-star review. Is that the same?
it's a different person, but he talks about like the exact same problems that this guy complains about being in. He raves about how the problems that this guy is talking about were clearly explained in the plot.
Ah,
Let's
Isn't
see.
Is it hilarious?
well, hold on. He spelled
this is not range.
He spelled too many missing details with a W.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of funny. Like, how does he? Where they get? For one thing, the author never explains how they got the resources to feed armor, and otherwise provision 1 million people for 20 years when they were in prison. Was this prison in Dimensional Pocket? Was it in another land? I have no idea. I very much enjoyed this book. It felt like a classic good versus evil with some originality to the plot development. I noticed some editing errors, but nothing that could not be overcome. I thought it was very detailed and an interesting array of characters and great plot development. The multiple levels of conspiracy were well interwoven with the story and not boring or long. I liked the new idea regarding the feeding of armies with a magical food that sustained them instead of the normal baggage change of food stockpiled and delivered as in all stories I have read over the years. That was a nice change.
Excellent book. I just wish the author had a website or page to go to so I could see when his next book would be available in this saga. Let alone learn a little about the author, as his readers, I am sure, would appreciate it. Yeah.
Maybe you should put your YouTube account on the backside of the books for next time.
Maybe.
Good book, but by horrible editing.
Yes, I definitely agree with all of this. Yeah. That's fun. That's kind of funny. Funny.
Great book. Yes.
Yeah.
So
well,
it's their first book, so it wouldn't be surprising if they were editing errors and other problems.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
indeed.
just kind of like I just kind of find it very amusing that it's just like these two reviews are right next to each other, and one person said I didn't have a problem with this; they explained it well. I just find that really funny.
But then 13 people found the bad review helpful, and only 2 found the good review helpful.
Which is weird. I don't get it.
Yeah, whatever, you know.
Yeah. All right, but The Lost Legion and War of a Thousand Kings and King of Damnation in the Pyrian Chronicles trilogy are out on Amazon if you want to read the rest of the story. I probably will finish the prologue next week and kind of show where Valkar has been disappeared to for the last 300 years. So keep that in mind. In the prologue, it said that a little bit earlier, Valkar vanished and nobody knew where he was 300 years ago. And we'll
How
find
old is he?
He is 28, I believe.
How can he be 28 if it's been 300 years? Is he dead?
Basically, the idea is that he has it's kind of a mystery, but it's not a mystery box. So I know basically what has happened is there was a storyteller a father was telling his daughters a story about Valkar
Yes.
Pyrian, and it's been 300 years since he disappeared, and this is the moment where he disappears. And I'll read you guys the conclusion of what happened to him after he disappeared, and then kind of how he's going to come into the story 300 years after he should have died.
How nice.
But he can't be 28 if it's 300 years and he's still alive.
Hey, magic exists.
Yeah, but logic exists too.
No,
Yeah,
magic.
well-
Magic keeps him alive,
well-
therefore.
But there's math.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not 28.
By the
Yeah,
way,
he wouldn't
elves
be-
don't age
his
as
body
well.
is
So.
his
Man.
body is 28, but I think like it's kind of like think of it like Narnia time. It's going to be 20 years.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be 20 years for him, but 300 years outside. So
No, it stinks.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, it does stink. It stinks. Yep. But
That's just my opinion. That's just your opinion. You should reply to that.
well, actually, I actually have a better response to that one.
Uh-oh. I have a bad feeling.
Well, it's not that bad. It's just this.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Opinions.
No, that's not an opinion. It's a fact.
The Lannisters are
So, hold on. Are you the lion or the sheep?
The Lannisters are just so annoying. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's Schrodinger's lion or sheep. It's whichever one you prefer.
Yeah, the Lannisters are just so annoying with that. Oh, the lion. Just shut up.
If you don't like my opinion, then don't buy my book.
Oh
Indeed.
God.
Well, if you enjoyed that, I've had the Lost Legion up for a little bit for the whole reading. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you buy it because I want to sustain myself off of this.
I see.
I need to have some breakfast next morning, please.
By the way, $499 Amazon. I don't remember what book it is, but it's probably down the header. I can't see it because I'm in Streamlabs.
The Lost Legion.
Whatever one is on the banner below. I'm assuming you still have that banner below. I can't see it from here.
The banner? You mean this
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, the one below. Yeah, that one. I couldn't see it.
Yeah, I have like 3 banners so far. I need to make more. Let me like put a link or something. But it's is available for your purchase wherever you can on Amazon Kindle. Unlimited for free. Basically, I get money based on the percentage of the book that you read. If you read it on Kindle Unlimited, or you can just buy it for $5 Kindle, or buy the paperback for $15.
We accept credit card, cash, check.
PayPal. PayPal also works.
There's a PayPal at the bottom of the description. Please give him $500,000 now, and now we come to the real bit. This is what it's actually about. All that was just the preface. Now for the next 5 hours, we're going to beg for money from you. So hope you're ready.
Once I reach 1,000 subs, I will do a 12-hour live stream.
Jeez, that's gonna be fun.
God, man,
that's my promise.
Gonna be fun.
That's my promise. So share this around, and once it gets up to that point, I will spend 12 hours hanging out with you guys. Probably some of you will not like that.
Is that a real promise? All right, good.
What, Balerion?
Are you not going to do the anniversary? The 1 year anniversary?
I don't think I will.
Pardon me.
Unfortunately, like with the 1 year anniversary, I don't think that I will be able to. Since the main thing about a live stream is for that long is mainly like super chat and audience investment. The audience right now isn't large enough to sustain 12 hours of conversation.
Yeah.
12 hours.
You're probably right. Yeah.
You could do like 4 hours maybe, tops.
Yeah, I could do 4 hours and discuss it. I'd have to figure out what I would do for just like a 4-hour stream.
We could watch some stuff. We could watch some great stuff.
We could binge Maggie May Fish and Wit and Folly.
Yay!
Maggie.
Yep. I don't know what I'll do. I could just chat about my books as well, and basically like me, Tarek, and Balerion could kind of like exchange our creative processes, that sort of thing, possibly.
Cool.
I'll have to figure something out. I need to find the anniversary thing. I think it's like July something or other. A couple weeks. We'll do something next Wednesday. I know I'm getting brand new stuff of Legendary since I got like $150 from Amazon for applying for gift cards. So payday, baby. And thankfully, like Walmart gives out $75 for vaccine if you get a vaccine. So that's something to consider too. At least if you work there, it's a nice bonus. We'll have to see you guys later. Thank you all for coming. Glad you enjoyed our stories. Eric, Balerion, Codex, Johan, all of you did a really good job. I'm glad to have you, and I look forward to seeing more of your stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very
See you
much.
guys
Thank
next
you.
time.
All right.
Until the next time, then, I guess.
All right. Until next time. Adios.
Until the next meeting.
Bye.
Goodbye.